Welcome to Jason Cabin Spirits. Our guest, I believe for the third time, is my great friend Daniella Young. Daniella, thanks for doing this again.
Thanks so much for having me.
So, first off, how is the book coming along?
It is doing great. We did our second print already. And, I talked with Khloe Kardashian about it on her show, so.
So how did that come about? I mean, Khloe Kardashian, that's like kind of random to me, right? Like, why would she reach out to you? Because she has her own podcast too, I guess?
Yeah, so she has a podcast that's just called Khloe in Wonderland. And it's kind of, I think it's like her angle of monetizing her fame just to allow her to have conversations with interesting people. So they actually reached out to my talent manager and we went back and forth on whether we wanted to do it or not, you know, especially because it was not paid and I'm mostly done working for exposure. But we decided Kardashian exposure was a different kind of exposure.
Just a little different. So you had a lot of great opportunities, like you had Carter Kardashian, you've been on Vice, Rolling Stone, other ones, I think New York Times, other ones I don't think about. What do you think when you get these opportunities? You're like, man, I'm the luckiest lady in the world, or like, I deserve this, or like, whoa, like, how's this even happening to me?
I mostly feel like I've worked for it and prepared for it, and yeah, it's expected. Not expected, but you know what I'm saying. Like, there hasn't been one that like knocked me off balance or was really shocking. I was wondering if I was going to be nervous at any of them, but you know, the interesting thing, it turns out that I'm the cult expert and they're not. So I'm just good at answering questions about my own life and my own expertise.
So in my opinion, you're a great public speaker, right? Part of that because you're an extrovert with a capital E on it, right? But have you always been a great public speaker, or do you have to learn like other people do, like you kind of like hone your craft, so to speak, to become the speaker you are today?
I have always been a performer, and like I have always been outgoing. You know, funny story, when I was 2.5, growing up in an international cult in Japan, and we were doing a performance for about 250 people. And there's a literal photo of all the other toddlers hiding because they were too afraid to come out on the stage. And I just waltzed out and did the show in front of 250 people on my own. That being said, you definitely have to develop your skills as a public speaker, I think, separately. For a lot of performance, just throwing yourself into it is what you need to be able to do. And that's what I'm really good at. The public speaking, I definitely had to hone. And like, I don't like to watch my TEDx talk because I was very new back then.
We talked about this before. I don't feel people don't realize, like, when you speak in front of somebody, like we have a group of people here now, like as opposed to times spoken in front of 100 people about being a helicopter pilot, right? They're gonna naturally assume he knows what he's talking about, right? You know, like if you get in front of a group of crowd, they're gonna naturally assume you know what you're talking about, I believe.
Yeah, so I call this front of the room advantage.
Yeah.
That when you're listening to someone introduced, you know, with this bio that generally they've written themselves, talking about how cool they are, you're not usually sitting there wondering if this person deserved to be at the microphone. We just assume that this person deserves to be at the microphone. And it's something I used to talk to veterans about a lot back when I was doing networking, you know, training.
You got to tell that story. How you're the best person to do the take advantage of the front room thing. You like to do that every event I saw you at. Even just as 10, you just somehow get a microphone, like, I'm Daniella Young, blah, 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 blah. People are like, who's this lady right here?
Yep.
She's not in the event space.
I still do it. I've just changed my tactics a little bit. But when I first got into the entrepreneur space and I didn't really know what my thing was yet, I had this LinkedIn trick for getting everyone to connect. And since everyone was at a networking event to connect, I would always get the organizer of the event to let me have the microphone for 3 minutes, teach people something that's valuable, right? It's like when you're on the microphone, you need to, just like any other product or service, you have to give value to your audience, and then they all want to come talk to you.
So your story that you tell, does anyone ever tell you, Daniella, this is not your place to tell this story, even though it's your own story?
I mean, some people try. You know, it is especially sensitive for fellow cult survivors who feel like it is our joint story. I did a lot of work with that with my co-writers of Uncultured, my first book, my memoir, because the way I would tell a group story was using a lot of we, as much in the cult as in the army. And we went through a lot of kind of them teaching me that it's I. But I also got this tip from a mentor of mine early on, which was ground everything in your story, because then it is hard for people to say this is not your topic to talk about.
So your first book, it was through like an established publisher. The second one is pretty much on your own with some help from this lady I met. Talk about the process between deciding to get away from the publisher, like pretty much like investing yourself, like going all in on the book yourself.
Yeah, so the first time I wrote a book, I ironically decided I wanted to do the big traditional publishing deal because I didn't want to have to sell myself. And I thought, like I think a lot of other people think, like you get a big book deal and then that's it. You're now a popular author. And maybe that used to happen back in the day, but one of the notions that I was very disabused of was that the traditional gatekeepers know how to do it, right? Right now, everything is about going viral and nobody knows how to predict what's going to go viral. And it turned out that I still had to learn how to get on the internet, build a platform, and to date, I have sold about 85,000 copies of Uncultured. And a lot of that is because I got on the internet every day and started influencing my own book sales. So then fast forward to Culting of America, which is my second book. I still wanted to use the publisher just because I think everybody likes it when somebody else writes the big check up front and takes the gamble, you know, and with the big publisher, like you don't necessarily have to pay back the advance. It's them betting on you. And in part, I think because I had not yet bought out my advance of Uncultured, they decided to pass on the book. I actually pitched them 2 different books, a second memoir, and then they said, well, what if you write a book called Culting of America? And I said, okay, but I made a deal with myself, especially because this book was a research book, that if I did all the work to figure out what that book was going to be, put together a proposal, you know, it was about 6 months of work. And I said, fine, but I'm writing this book no matter what. And during that process, it was actually writing Culting of America was how I learned how to build my platforms. You know, and now looking back, I always say that memoir is hard to sell because it's hard to convince other people to choose to spend their precious time reading about you. And so when memoir authors just talk about how amazing their story is, which, I mean, I very much have a unique 1 in a billion story that I tell here, but what I had to learn and what I'm now pretty good at is getting people to understand how my story is going to help them learn stuff about themselves. Like my memoir is really about you, the reader.
And didn't you outsource the book to your readers or your fans?
Yes. So with Culting of America, I definitely wrote this as a crowdsourced book in that I got on TikTok the first day that I sat down to write, and I just said, I wonder if people want to know this stuff that I'm going to be talking about. And, you know, turns out if you're willing to be in the comments talking to your audience, like they will give you a lot of feedback, and including things that I didn't quite understand yet. So my favorite example is underwear. I went to my audience and I was like, why are cults always controlling underwear? Like, I figured this out when I was writing my memoir. I was like, okay, so in the Children of God, they were checking our underwear to make sure we weren't wearing it at night. It was very creepy. Nobody wanted it in the book. But I was like, no, I know it's important because in the military, there are underwear requirements again. Turns out, I didn't even know that, like, East Coast WASP people have rules about underwear that are passed down from mother to daughter. And I was given all of these different things. You know, there's another part of the book where I'm talking about justified lying. And like right before it went to press, someone told me about Nietzsche's concept of Piafraus, pious fraud. And it's a great roll up to that section that I just wouldn't have known about or come across on my own necessarily.
And so I met this lady in Dallas with you. I think her name is Saya, your publisher. Can you talk about how that relationship with you and her came across or came about?
Yeah, so when I decided I was going to do the book self-publishing, or part of why I decided to self-publish it, was because the woman that I wanted to co-write the book with me, Amy Reed, who had been on the co-writing team for Uncultured, she was now working as the full-time editor and editorial director for this indie publisher, Otterpine. And so she introduced me to Saya Wood. Saya Wood is a Korean American Navy veteran who was a logistics officer. And she got out of the military and she decided she was going to use her connections in Asia and now pretty much across the world and her logistics experience to help publish books at any level that the author wanted in a like least capitalist kind of company possible. I really liked the mission, and not to mention we're both veteran women and we both knit and crochet. And so when I said something like, I want to make knitting needle swords to launch with my book, she was all about it. And now we have knitting needle swords.
So I hope I answered the right way. Let's suppose someone else was telling you to do all this stuff, right? They would accuse that person of exploiting you, right? So do you think you're exploiting yourself?
I was just having this conversation earlier today. I like to say that I am the only one that gets to exploit my trauma now. And people try to talk about that like it's a dirty thing. And in fact, part of why I wrote my first book was because I have all this pain and I have all this trauma and this crazy background that kind of makes me not fit anywhere. And so I wanted to turn it into something. Now, one of the things I talk about in The Culting of America in Cults is the exploitation of labor. And I have recently realized I think I'm exploiting my own labor a little bit too much. And I need to like set some rules about not working on the weekend, etc. But I mean, it feels really good and really healing that I got to take my stories and my trauma and turn it into something that helps other people. And then I would also say I was surprised by the fact that it helped me more than I thought. Like other people have helped me more than I thought that they would.
Can you talk some about how your relationship with your mom has evolved over the years?
Yeah. So my mom was born and raised in the cult as well, had me at the age of 15, was not very involved in raising me because of the cult, because we grew up in communes and she was off having her labor exploited. And then I was out of the cult when I was 15. Now, you know, the one very interesting thing about my mom is she was a absolutely true believer at the time that I was leaving the cult, and yet she still encouraged me to go because she said that, you know, later, and when I asked her why, she said that she could just see in my eyes that I was unhappy all of the time, and so she wanted me to get out of there.
And so how many like brothers, sisters you have?
I have 25 siblings.
So why do you think, you kind of already answered this, why do you think she only did this with you and not the other ones?
I mean, I was her oldest she's only the mother of 8 of those siblings. And I think she was a true believer and she still wanted all of her children to end up choosing to do this with their lives. And then eventually she got out with most of the other kids were still fairly young when she left with them. So I don't think it was that much of a choice as just her seeing that with me. But I will also say that outside of the cult, she has developed into the kind of parent that just has a very individual relationship with each one of her children. And that is something pretty cool about her.
Let me ask you this. What responsibility, if all, do you think you have for the action of your followers? So what do I mean about this? So we was in Dallas, and I didn't tell you this before. So it was me and Barry Gibson was talking to one of your followers, right? When you're super fans, don't be super fans. He's talking about, you know, like how you're great, like you listen to blah, blah, blah. And then just like he went to like, I'm paraphrasing, Elon Musk needs to die. I don't want to be the one who kills him. I'll be so happy in my life, I'm the one who kills him, right? So like, what responsibility do you have those kind of people like that, right? It's like, you know, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, so I talk about quite a bit, and there's part in the book where I talk about how fans are not group followers, you know, like social media chose to label it followers. I think it's a little culty. And I spend quite a lot of time telling people, like, I'm not your leader, right? Like, I am an expert that's here giving information. And I think my responsibility is to give good information. I also spend a lot of time trying to help them not deify me, like not turn me into a god. And one of the things that I have always done, which I think is why I've built such an interesting channel, is bringing in other people, right? Other people's works. Other people have helped me write my books. Culting of America has 400 endnotes. You know, I'm not doing anything in a vacuum. So even if somebody does get obsessed with me and my content, which often people do in the beginning of their deconstruction, they're still not getting isolated just with my voice. But this example right here, like, I do not think I have any responsibility for
I agree.
this man.
But you see me and Barry looking like, what? I know you give someone look like, what the hell, you know? Yeah. So is there ever an instance where groupthink is actually a good thing or can be a good thing?
I don't know. I think that sometimes in order to avoid very large disasters, you need to have a bit of groupthink and you also need to have some authoritarian leadership. But I also don't like either of those two things. And I think that they are very, very problematic. But also, it's not something that we can actually avoid. You know, I always say the answer to if your friends jumped off a cliff, would you, is yes, for about 97% of people.
Yeah, and obviously depends on what friends they are too, you know. The brand new friend, maybe not.
Yeah, and, you know, one of the animal things about us is the way that we tell what is safe to do is what other people around us are doing. And we've evolved to have so many dangerous or crazy things that we can do, but our brains have not evolved beyond the groupthink in a lot of ways.
So your bio list, author, speaker, veteran, cultural survivor, mother, human. Which one of those are like you like speaks to you the most right now? Like you right now, you're which one of those?
I mean, I think all of them.
Maybe you had to pick one. Put you on the spot.
Yeah, I think sort of, how do I say it? Like I'm blanking on the word, but I will say artist.
Okay.
You know, like I actually thought it was weird when I had to introduce myself as an author all the time because I was like, but I'm not just an author. Right now, I've written a musical, I sell paintings, you know, so I see myself as someone that is helping to build the language for cult babies, for the survivor community. I like to say entrepreneur of words and ideas.
Talk about the process. I've seen everyone in the room seen you go through this. The process of making yourself a brand and monetizing yourself as a brand.
You know, I started out with a very firm belief that I was the unique value proposition, and I knew that I was trying to turn my stories and my experience and the wisdom, I guess, that I thought I had gained into a brand. And it was interesting because in the entrepreneur world, a lot of people didn't think that was possible. I also think that I learned so many things from entrepreneurship that a lot of people that are trying to build brands don't have. You know, so like the idea of what problem are you solving and being able to sort of iterate on that. But also I spent a lot of time trying to do things the way I thought I was supposed to do things. So for example, I was like, I want to talk about culture and leadership, so I guess I'm going to do leadership consulting. And that was like sort of me and my personality fighting with what I thought I was supposed to do. And, you know, it's very interesting. I remember in our entrepreneurship program, actually, I heard that there are 1,000 books on good leadership published in English every day. And it's really, really hard to make your mark, you know, in something that is that noisy. But when I actually asked myself, what do I want to do? Like people keep telling me to clean myself up, be more professional. People keep telling me that you can't make money just focusing on the bad guys, but that's what I wanted to do. And ultimately, I had a very clear moment where I said, you know what? I don't care about groups. Like, I'm an expert in groups. I'm getting this master's degree from Harvard in organizational psychology, and I don't actually care about making these companies better. I think I want to focus on individuals. And now this has evolved into what's working very well for my brand is I wrote a book about bad leadership, and I talk about being an expert on bad leadership and bad groups. And almost nobody is doing that.
So you found like a little niche, so to speak.
Yeah. And, now everybody's like, bad leadership, brilliant. But 3 years ago, everyone was like, what are you going to do with that?
So back to Khloe Kardashian, right? If I remember correctly, you did the interview with her, and you got so much flack on social media, right? How dare you go on her show? How dare you give this person, whatever you want to call it, your audience here, right? And you're like, you know what? I mean, you said about this. You said basically, screw all y'all. If I have a platform to tell my show, I'm gonna tell it. And you even said like, if President Donald Trump, Judge Trump said, "Come do an interview," I would do it, right? And I think that speaks volumes, right? Because like you should tell your story to everyone that listens to, right? Who knows? You might convert someone.
Yeah, and I'm always calling out the cult aspect of it. And there was a lot of this like, well, why are you talking to them?
Yeah.
They're the bad guys. They're the outsiders. And I was like, well, this is very us versus them thinking, right? And kind of thinking that like, you're a better listener than other people. I think that there's so much of this toxic group behavior in everything. And I especially know, and this was the epiphany that Khloe had on her show, like when I found out that there was actually language for single family cults and individual two people relationships being cults, I was like, wow, this is stuff I want everybody to know about. And so I'm going to get on pretty much any platform and talk about it. And I also think going on somebody else's platform is very different than choosing to platform somebody on your program.
Yeah.
That's what I keep telling people. It's like, she invited me there to talk about me and my story and my message. I can pretty much do that on any platform.
Yeah. So a lot of people, they'll tell themselves, I'll never fall for a call. I'll never fall for a scam. I'll never fall for this. They're so confident, right? That confidence actually makes them more vulnerable to falling for that stuff, doesn't it?
Yes, especially thinking I'm too intelligent or I'm too critical. I also think people think there's some sort of magic involved in brainwashing, and there really isn't. One of the things I tell people is that, so first of all, I do think there is one type of person that is immune to cults, and that is the Samwise Ganges of the world, right? Like if you are 100% completely happy with where you are in life, it's going to be hard to manipulate you. However, I don't think any individual person should think that they are immune. And I even see this in groups or companies, right? Like, we're the good guys. Well, it's always low threat. It's never no threat, right? So I think that as soon as you start thinking you're safe, that's part of your blind spots. And this is actually a very good time for this question because I almost got scammed in a super deep level scam yesterday.
Oh, wow.
It was like a podcast with 1 million followers trying to ask me to come on, and then all of a sudden I'm in the tech check and somebody I don't know is requesting remote access to my Meta accounts. And I was like, whoa, no.
What?
Right? But it was like, they're getting very sophisticated with this kind of stuff.
How many people fall for the million podcast thing?
And 3 people had checked this out. Like, this wasn't just like something random that I did. It was like my team was checking on this, and we still got all the way to request remote takeover. And I was like, I literally had to tell myself, like, nope, no interview is worth this, right?
So did you finish first in college and high school, or just college?
College.
So you graduated first in college, became an Army officer, you're very successful. Why do you think some people like you are very driven, very focused, and like have what do you want to call it, but most people don't have it? I think it's DNA, raise, like internal whatever. Your husband telling you make more money. I mean, what is it?
He does put a lot of pressure on me to buy him airplanes and boats and stuff. I don't even know if I know how to answer this. You know, when I got out of the military, the lieutenant colonel that I worked for, who was a mentor of mine, sent me a box of about 10 books he wanted me to read. And one of them was Grit by Angela Duckworth, who kind of did a study on West Point students to try to see if we could predict like who was going to make it and who didn't. And, you know, I have no full siblings, so it's hard for me to say if it's DNA or nurture, but at least with my half siblings who grew up with half of my DNA in the same situations as me, there are very different outcomes where some of us just seem to have this motivation and some of us don't. So I think it probably has a lot more to do with personality. You know, I remember when I was getting out of the cult when I was 15 years old, dropped into the world, terrified, had no reason to believe I would be successful. But I was like, there's 10,000 people hoping that I'm going to fail from the cult. So like, screw them. I'm going to prove them wrong. You know, when I joined the army and people look at me as this little blonde Barbie doll that can't do anything, I'm going to prove you wrong. And like, people underestimating me has always fueled me to prove them wrong.
Hey, real quick, tell the pink running shoe story. That's our major.
So the one thing that the Army doesn't regulate about appearance is tennis shoes, just I think because it's too complicated. So I would always have essentially really bright pink running shoes. And many times this happened to me where we would just have gotten done doing our physical fitness test, right? Like we are literally running for our jobs. It is part of our job description to be good at this. I ran a 12 and a half minute 2 mile, right? So I would be done. Everyone else would still be running. At this one very specific time, we were deployed to Kandahar, and the sergeant major comes up to me and he says, "Ma'am, your shoes are very unprofessional." And I just looked at him and I was like, "Sir Major, if we want to talk about how bright colored shoes are unprofessional, that's one thing. But like, that dude has bright blue shoes. That blue has highlighter yellow shoes. That dude has highlighter orange shoes that nobody told him look pink when he's running that far behind me." So like, I
like how you had it running that far behind me.
Yes, I literally just outperformed these men at their jobs. And you're telling me that my tennis shoes are unprofessional.
So you're a mother now. How has your upbringing affected how you raise your daughters? Obviously, like your daughter's not going through what you did, but a lot of times I think as parents, like we throw a lot that we're at. We don't want our kids to go through the same thing, but then we say, or tell our kids, you're not tough enough. You didn't go through what we did, right? So how do you work through that?
So first of all, having a kid is really what made me realize that I needed to work more on my own, you know, what we call deconstruction and healing and all that, because I found myself getting very triggered and did not want to be responsible for passing down a lot of trauma. And also I was starting to realize that just choosing the opposite of how you were raised is not necessarily healthy.
Because sometimes you go too far the other way.
Exactly. I will say I had a very, very black and white view of like, I will not hit children. And that had a lot to do with my upbringing. I think that for both my husband and I, who were both soldiers, we met in the military, the hardest part is that we have a very, very opinionated child who has always done her own thing. Like,
that can be, I know firsthand, that can be a good thing and a bad thing.
Yeah, and she doesn't have this good little soldier mode to snap into because we haven't trained her in that. But because we were both raised being expected to, you know, shut up and sit down and listen to adults and be very controlled, that has been difficult. And then, yes, it is also hard that because my husband and I have worked very hard for our success, we feel like our kid doesn't appreciate it. You know, she takes money for granted, but I feel like that's on us to just understand that she's not, you know, you learn the value of money by being poor, and she's not in that situation.
Yeah.
And it was
I mean, she was born to a middle-class family, right?
Yes, and it's very similar to how when she was born, I raised her in Portuguese and exposed her to Brazilian culture, but ultimately I had to accept the thing I think a lot of immigrant parents go through, which is like, I'm not going to be able to pass down the love of this country and culture to her in the same way that I have it, because she's just not having those same experiences, up to the fact that part of why I love Brazil so much is because when I was outside of the cult, I was in Brazil, and like that was a bit of the escape. And then we'd have to go back behind the commune walls.
So as your daughter, do you think it would change if she had a brother or sister? Or think it used to be the same thing?
My daughter didn't breathe for 7 minutes because nobody asked her if she wanted to be born. I mean, I think she has been her person ever since she came out. But I also know that like being a sibling, like when I was writing my book, it was very important that I talked about being an older sibling, because of course that has a development. I think a lot of older siblings get parentified, where they're taking care of other children, and I'm kind of glad that my child doesn't have that. However, it also can teach you a lot of life skills, and it's just one of those things that you never know. You can't predict if it would have been better or worse.
So two-part question, right? So most of your cult was in Brazil, correct?
No, it was international.
International, but part of it was in Brazil, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so talk about how even though it's like most people say, I was going to call Brazil, screw Brazil, but you actually have a very good relationship with Brazil. You actually just came from a trip to Brazil, right? Can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah. So first of all, there's this piece, right, where like when I realized subconsciously that when I was out in public, I was safer, right? Exactly to the point that like nobody was going to hit us when we were out performing on the streets. We were going to be allowed to eat sugar and other things that were never allowed. And Brazilian people are very, very friendly, very, very kind, so there was a lot of love for that. Also, I think I had just a really hard experience coming to the US. I mean, being 15 and being dropped off in a place you don't know is going to be extremely hard for anyone. But because I looked American and sounded American, nobody understood. Even me understood like why I was fitting so poorly. And being from Brazil just became part of my explanation. One of the cool things about raising my daughter in Portuguese was we decided to have an exchange student to come help me with Portuguese in the home while we were hosting her. And we fell in love with this kid. She's definitely part of our family. And she's from a completely different part of Brazil where I grew up, the part that has the best beaches. It's called Recife. And so now it's like, I don't have to go back to the parts of Brazil that were triggering and hard for me. Like I went back one time, I did that trip. I went shopping at the market that I was begging out in front of when I was 12 years old. And now I just have a part of Brazil that is not painful anymore. And I have a family, because she's from a lovely family who is very supportive of her. And we are now part of that family. And that has been healing, I think, for both me and my husband, because we were not from families that were supportive in that way.
So one thing that still amazes me this day is how people try to go on your platforms and try to say stuff like, there's never been a female in combat, or there's all kind of batshit crazy stuff, right? And I mean, some females say it to many men, right? And do you think like to yourself, like, what an idiot, or you think like, ching ching, because you're making me money because you're engaged with me, right?
It's both. It's definitely both. I regularly say that the comments about how stupid my rainbow colored hair is pays for my rainbow colored hair. I definitely, when it's something that is explaining the military to me and they're just flat out wrong, or they're telling me to put a shirt on or something, my first thought is, ching ching, I'm gonna make one of these videos. And that is fun for me. But
I love how you make a video where the person's quotes up in the top corner, like pointing up there. This of course, you don't say because it's an idiot, but you just basically say, let me break it down how you're so wrong, and I'm,
Yeah, and it's interesting because people will judge me based on my appearance, and they never think about the fact that like I'm doing this on purpose. I am fully aware, first of all, what my background is, and I'm also fully aware that I don't look like a former Army captain with 2 best-selling books and a master's degree from Harvard. But I'm going to win that encounter, because again, people underestimating me has always gone well for me.
It's just like amazing me, like time after time. Like, have you even, if just scroll through your content, you'll see like, man, maybe I don't want to say that right there, Maybe I want to DM her privately, Hey, Daniella, I think about this, Instead of like a publicly, like, I think one time you had like one of the first crest on your shirt, and someone said, what are you doing with that on? Or something like that. They'll let females in units like this or something crazy.
Cultural appropriation, they called it. And I was like, and they'll be like, how did you get that? No, there's one way to get a 101st Combat Badge, and I did it twice. And I mean, even with people being like, how dare you say that? Mm-hmm. It's like the infantilization of like, no, I went to the Army Records Department and asked them what I was allowed to say. Mm-hmm. My book had to be cleared by the Pentagon. And so now it's fun. I mean, people accuse me of making up my story, and I'm like, wow, you must think a lot about my intelligence that I was able to fake being an Army captain so hard that I even got a picture with President Obama in the White House.
Con artist stuff right there. Man. But you do talk about controversial stuff a lot of times. Was that a conscious decision to talk about controversial stuff, or just came naturally as your platform grew?
It was a conscious decision. And I think it's because I kept having to set that boundary in my personal life of people being like, well, we just don't want to talk about this. We just don't want to talk about bad stuff. And I finally started saying, well, I don't do off limits topics. If it's something I want to talk about and something I feel like I have information on, I'm going to talk about it. But also being controversial is good for business. Especially as a creator. And that's what I guess is kind of fun about all the haters, because it's like, I mean, it's emotionally harder when people are telling you suck all the time, but it's the same amount of money, whether you're telling me I suck or whether you're telling me you love my content and it changed your life.
And for me, it's like, my criticism always comes from like user 19321 anonymous with no picture, no users, probably a bot, so yeah.
Yeah. But, I always say this to people. It's like when I am responding to a comment, I'm doing it for the sake of my whole audience. Yeah. And one of the reasons that I choose to respond to trolls is to model the behavior for other women, that you don't have to just take this.
Has there been a time when someone like gave you a bullshit comic, something off the wall, you responded, and they came back and said, oh, I apologize, I was wrong, you were right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. And there's also times when they come back and say, oh, I didn't mean it like that, I meant it like this. And then I will sometimes apologize, like if I've taken it completely wrong. But sometimes I will also push back that they should learn to sound less like trolls.
What's your biggest platform right now? I know it used to be TikTok.
It is now YouTube and Instagram. And okay. YouTube is definitely the one that monetizes the best. Okay. That's the one where I tell people to start off. Mm-hmm. Because YouTube, you can monetize for ad content and for products to sell, which is what I do. But I'm at around 1 million followers across, I think it's 7 platforms at this point.
Okay, nice. So next, let's talk politics real fast.
Of course.
So we're both from Texas, right? And I think everyone in this room is probably Democrat. I consider myself Republican, right? This is a good conversation, right? So in Texas, they're doing a Senate race between, I think it's Ken Paxton and the Democrat, right?
James Talarico.
I'm not saying James guy's going to win, but he's going to get a lot more votes than people think he is, right? I think, what's that guy from El Paso who ran a few years ago? Everyone's like kind of hyped on him.
Beto?
Yeah. I think he's going to do better than Beto's going to do. Because first, he's a Baptist minister. I just did this podcast with Joe Rogan, and like, I would vote for him, right? Instead of Republican, right? And Ken Paxton, he just has so much dirt. Affair with his wife, scandals, whatever. I think President Trump made a big mistake endorsing him over the other guy, right? I don't know. It's like, I don't know if he can win, but I think that guy's going to shock a lot of people in Texas.
Yeah, I think, I mean, both sides are concerning to me, right? I think that it's interesting that Trump went on this revenge tour in the primaries, and a lot of his base is unhappy about that, and that was the crack in the brainwashing for a lot of people. But also, it's really hard for Democrats to win in Texas without the black vote. And it seems like black Texans very much do not want to vote for James Tallarico, and they're willing to have Ken Paxton, who's the devil they know, because they're so mad at Democrats for just assuming that they have the black vote.
Do you think it's too because he beat that Jasmine Crockett, and they're like, Jasmine Crockett lost, so we're going to take on a choice someone to win and go stay at home, so to speak?
But I think it's because of how white voters treated Jasmine Crockett, and because the electability argument is kind of a sham, right? Anyone's electable if everybody votes for them.
Yeah.
And so what I'm seeing now is a lot of people going like, well, you said he was electable, so now go elect him.
Yeah.
But I don't know how to call it. I still kind of suspect that Ken Paxton will win, but it's a very interesting race to watch.
He's going to win, but instead of like being 55-45, I think it'll be like 51-49. It's going to scare a lot of Republicans. Like, oh shit, like, yeah, he just has so much baggage, right? I mean, man, like, you just Google who stuff is done. It's embarrassing, right? And plus, too, like, reason I would not vote for him is because like he got rid of all legal marijuana in Texas. He tried to do that stuff, That's the reason I would vote for him, But yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I think people are so tired right now of being forced to deal with people that have so much baggage and so much bullshit. Like, why can't we find better leaders?
Yeah, with that, like, hey, Dan, y'all taking off?
Yeah.
All right. See y'all later.
Thanks.
Bye, Eliza.
We'll see you soon.
And we're thinking, like, why would any decent candidate want to run for office, right? Like, why? Like, why? I mean, Jason Kavanaugh, he skipped school in the 6th grade, all the dirt they bring up on you, right? And you have these people like Donald Trump, Ken Paxton, it's just the best of best in our running,
I think about this a lot with leadership, right? Because like the people I think that want leadership are not the people you want to be leaders. And I know you and I were both the kind of leader in the military that was like, rank is here for a reason, so that we know our jobs, we know who we're talking to, not to make me feel good. I think that's very similar with fame. I think a lot of creators and influencers especially start thinking that they're special because they have so many followers. And I really had to go through that for myself. Like, do I want this? And I think I'm actually kind of a good person to be famous, because the only reason I want to be famous is so that I can get this message to more people. I keep trying to convince my husband to run for office because he doesn't want to, because he doesn't want that leadership role. And I think a lot about like, who would want to run for president? Like, who would want to be a prisoner in that job for 4 to 8 years?
I mean, you have a lot of power. People do what you say, but man, all the like President Trump, President Biden, whatever president is, President Obama, probably half the things they were accused of, they did. Half they didn't do. And plus the stress you put your family under. You can't imagine being like a president's daughter for 8 years, like having like a Secret Service person like 24/7, like.
No. I think it's very telling the way that Michelle Obama talks about it. Like, she recently called it the crucible, but pretty much every time she talks about her 8 years in the White House, she sounds like she's talking about prison.
Yeah. Here's one for you, off the subject, right? Has there ever been like a president's kid, like the name myself, President Carter, his daughter's name Amy, President Clinton had Chelsea, the second George Bush had his daughters, can't remember their names.
Jenna and...
I can't remember. Yeah. All these kids, has any one of them actually like of course, they're not successful. Of course, they have no choice. They're doing shows alike, but like I think one of the Bush kids has a successful talk show. One of the Obama kids has like a fashion line. But has anyone actually like done like superstar stuff? Like, you know what I'm saying? Like they started a multi-billion-dollar corporation, or like became like, you know what I'm saying?
No, I don't think so.
Yeah, there's almost being that kind of limits you in a way, you know.
Yeah, I wonder if it's because they don't want to trade on their name or their fame. You know, like I know Sasha goes by Sasha Ann professionally. She doesn't use the Obama name.
Yeah.
Or if it's because they just don't know how to.
Or like I lived a life for 8 years, you know, I don't want to do that anymore.
Exactly.
I had the fame, like it's not what it's cracked up to be.
It honestly has to be so traumatizing to be a president's child, especially when you are a child when that is happening.
Yeah.
You know, I think anytime children have a job, they're not allowed to be children. And I think this about like high-ranking officers in the military and their children are
and the spouses, right?
Yeah, their spouses and their children are expected to always toe the line.
You will lead the FRG.
I love it when they're like, well, you married the army. No, I didn't. I married Tom Young, and I'm my own person.
It's crazy. So how do you think we fix this, right? So like, I think U.S. Congressmen make something like $185,000 a year, but all of them are multi-million dollars, right? Like, I don't know, like something's crooked going on, right? Like, how can what's that lady's name? The congressman from Washington, from California. Her husband is like
Nancy Pelosi.
Yeah, her husband has better stock picks than Warren Buffett. You know, I don't know, right? It's like this seems like I don't know.
I mean, the first thing is I think it's the American exceptionalism. You know, there's definitely this idea that in America our politics are not corrupt, and in fact our politics have always been corrupt. You know, I was thinking the other day about how much would it change if you had to be nominated to run for office. You know, like the process that some of the stuff goes through, but like you couldn't put yourself forward. You had to be almost like selected by the community to run in the first place. But I also it's so hard to do anything with 350 million people, right?
Yeah.
Like it's such a big country.
And not even that, like people think the state of Washington is liberal, right? Seattle is liberal, right? Pretty much everything east of the mountains is like really conservative, right? Texas is known as a conservative state, but Austin, Dallas, San Antonio, they're very liberal, right? So even within states, it's like so many different contrasting cultures and political outlooks.
Yeah, but I do think it is a lot about talking about the corruption, like talking about the corruption and then not allowing that conversation to be shut down simply because other people are saying, well, what are our better options? You know, and this is how Peter Magyar won in Hungary. And Hungarians had long considered that there was no way to run an anti-corruption campaign and win because Hungarians were so jaded and thought everyone was corrupt. And this is also a big thing where people have a crack in the brainwashing. You know, there's a story in The Children of God where everyone was poor, right? We were beggars for Christ. And then one day the new leader showed up wearing a Rolex. And that was the end for a lot of people because they could literally tie this corruption to the things in their lives. So I think we just can't stop talking about the corruption, right? In all of, and we, you know, when I talk about the corruption of Democrats, people literally tell me to shut up and go die because what about the other side? And I just think we can't, like, that is a thought-stopping cliche, right? Like, we have to talk about the corruption and we have to try to find politicians that are not going to be corrupt. And we also have to be willing to, like, lose to the other side while we find better representatives, I guess, because we have to keep talking about the corruption.
So this is my point of view, and most people won't agree with it, right? But I think the reason, I just think the Democratic Party needs new leadership, right? Because like 2016, so to be totally transparent, 2016 I voted for Hillary Clinton because in my mind, despite all the dirt she had, I don't think anyone's been more qualified to be president than her, right? But the Democratic Party put her in, even though I think it should be Bernie Sanders. 2020 I voted for Trump, 24 I voted for Trump. But 2016 they put heard it was set up Bernie Sanders. So I think they messed that up. I think like they didn't like they took Trump for granted, right? Like they didn't go run in like I think Michigan, Wisconsin, Ohio, places they'd never lost before. Um, and then in 2024, if I'm correct, like 2020, President Biden won, and he said, "I'm a one-term president." What was the thing? Power corrupts absolutely. So he ran again, even though he's like one thing I think President Biden did. I think he proved aliens are here. Okay, every time he got up, I shook someone's hand. I think that's an alien he was shaking the hand to, you know. And so people had to know his state of mind, right? Because that debate performance, like it was like, man, what is this, right? And with Kamala Harris, I think she's set for failure because even though she raised $1 billion and other stuff, right? She only had like a 2/3 of normal time to run for presidency, right? And then like President Biden didn't endorse her, President Obama didn't endorse her, right? So I think she's set for failure. So I think the Democratic Party they should have had someone run against President Biden in the primary, right? And all this like mental stuff would have been exposed ahead of time, right?
I mean, I think the Democratic Party keeps snatching defeat out of the jaws of victory.
I mean,
I say this all the time because people are like, well, both sides are a cult. And I'm like, but who's the leader? Which is to say, I very much agree with you. I think that we need new leadership and we need leadership that is listening to young people because this is another problem, right? Like the average age in Congress is 64 years old. Like everyone needs to just retire pretty much.
And I think I heard this in the news the other day. The one lady, Maxine Waters, she hasn't started for a vote like 4 or 5 months. They're trying to track her down or, you know, like, where's this lady even at, you know? Like, both like Mitch McConnell needs to go, you know? Like, one guy I do like, you ever listen to Senator Kennedy from Louisiana?
No.
He just says some crazy off-the-wall stuff, right? Yeah, he's just insane, yeah. I don't know. And then, like, they say, like, term limits. On one part of me, like, term limits, like, we have term limits, people vote. But do they really vote right? You know, like people hate like Mitch McConnell across the United States, except his people in Kentucky, right?
I definitely think we should have term limits. I think we should have term limits on the Supreme Court too. You know, I think this idea that people can just be in the job no matter what, especially, you know, as they're getting older and clearly falling apart. You know, I think we need to judge
or at least some kind of mental test, right?
Yeah, or like, you know how in Britain they can recall their prime minister and they seem to do it every 6 months.
Yesterday.
You know, like can we have a process where we can call for votes of no confidence on people? Like that would be helpful, I think. But yeah, this idea that like there's a certain age at which we take your driver's license away from you because you're not capable of doing it anymore. I don't think those people should still be running.
I know people call aging. My thing is like, I would be good. You have to take driver's tests like every 5 or 10 years, right? Then again, like the DMV is not the most optimized place for performance, you know. So I don't know about that one, you know.
Yeah, but you know, I mean, I think we understand that you have to be physically fit to do certain jobs, and mentally fit is a kind of fit for being able to do the job.
They make you the head of the Democratic Party for the 2020 election. Who's your presidential and vice presidential candidate?
Right now, I would love to see Pete Buttigieg be a candidate. I would love to see AOC be a candidate. I would love to see John Ossoff.
Who's that? I don't know him.
He's a senator in Georgia.
I don't know
and he's doing a very anti-corruption kind of campaign.
So mine's kind of close. I would pick the governor from either Pennsylvania or Michigan, have AOC as VP. I think if you're a Democrat, you have to put AOC on there. She might be like what's I'm looking for, like a paralyzed or whatever. They think she's too far left, but like that's part of the Democratic Party. Like you have to have someone like AOC on the ticket to like kind of like I hate to use the word placate the progressive liberals. We need someone to placate them. Like I think AOC does that, right?
And someone who's listening to them and talking directly to them, and also with both Pete Buttigieg and AOC. They're using technology. They're moving forward with the world as it moves forward, and other candidates just are not.
I think with AOC, she definitely needs like learn to talk better. Cause like remember like a couple months ago, she basically said New York is time to. I forgot what term she used, but you use that term in the South, it means like we're gonna fight, right? She said it's time for us to raise up and go down the South to Alabama or whatever. People in the South like, what? You gonna come down and you want to fight us? Like like yeah. So she does have moments for like okay, maybe like
Yeah, and she's young. You know, she's quite young. But
you remember this? Like, we got elected, right? And this is one reason I hate Republicans sometimes, right? all you probably say, oh, we have a video of AOC doing like what these like nasty stuff, dishonorable stuff, like blah blah blah. There's a video of her dancing in college to like the Friends theme song to students. Like she had like pants. It's like, what are you doing, right? Like she's dancing with her college friends, like all her clothes on, having a good time. And this is like scandalous. Like, what are you doing?
I don't know if you remember this, but there was a whole time, like when I was still in college, where they were like, don't post your photos on Facebook because people are losing jobs because there's photos of them partying.
Yeah.
Like, that's what you're supposed to be doing as a young person, you know? Like, there's a lot of purity testing when it comes to politics.
Yeah.
And that's a cult thing, you know?
That has to change.
And it was interesting because before Trump got elected, we were having the conversation of like the only people that are going to be able to run for office are going to be Mormons, right? Because they're the only ones that
right?
never got drunk and said something on silly on a recording. But I think that we also hold like women to higher standards than we hold men to, right? We hold minorities to higher standards than we hold men to. And so, yeah, that's a perfect example of like, people are human.
Yeah.
And we need to understand the difference between like being corrupt and being unfit and like dancing at a party.
Yeah, I saw like it was so embarrassing. It's like, are you kidding me right now? Like this is wholesome, good fun, and everyone even dancing together. Right? It's like basically like a line of people dancing, like doing like it's.
And I mean, I say all the time that one of the reasons I won't run for office is because people will put naked photos of me on the internet. And I try to be like, well, I don't care. I looked good. But like nobody wants to have to go through that. And if we could stop, if we could understand that like there's a difference between, to use an army term, like honor violations and doing silly stuff when you were younger. Like those are very different things.
Very different, yeah. A bad example, like it's one thing to get a DUI at 18, 25 years ago, and getting one last night like in your 50s, right?
Exactly.
Big difference. So changing subjects. One thing that's warm my heart, makes me so happy, is the World Cup, right? Like people from Europe, like it's crazy. I say this stuff on the tick all the time. My country lied to me. Americans are great. The food is great. So it's like it's crazy. Like they're losing them out of a Buc-ee's. Like go to Corral. Like go to Corral. Are you kidding me? Right? Go to fucking Corral Ranch. And this one guy did a video. He like, all the sunsets are always like this. A dude like, what do you have in Europe? There's no sunsets. There's no ranch. Like what the hell is going on over there, right? And like the Koreans and Mexicans having a good time in Guadalajara. Like I went to Korea Mexico game on Thursday night here in Pioneer Square. And it's been so much fun. And like how people like fall in love with America, right? Because they think it's all Trump politics. Like one guy, like, man, I've been here 3 days, no gun battle yet,
Yeah,
it's just amazing.
I saw a couple memes that were like, what the World Cup is teaching us right now is that most of us can get along, and the problem is our leaders,
or
like
media,
basically like our parents are sucky alcoholics, but like the rest of us are cool and like we want to get along
like
with each other.
They're called the Great American Sleepover. Like the Scots drank Boston out of beer. Like how do you drink Boston out of beer? Like good Lord.
The Scots.
Like Boston and Glasgow are now sister cities. It's like the Bosnians took over St. Louis. Did you see where Lawrence, Kansas adopted Lawrence, Kansas adopted a Algeria team?
Yep. And of course the Brazilians show up and just get everyone involved in parties.
Did you see where the Brazilians went out is the same night the Knicks won the championship? Like is New York always like this? I mean, it's just been amazing. Like people like extending their trips. People like now know why people want to be illegal immigrants over here because I'm about to become one.
Yeah.
It's been so fun like seeing that.
And to me, that's always kind of true about culture, Like, I've never been to one country that I didn't think was just amazing.
I've never been in a country where, like, damn, these people suck.
Yeah.
It has not happened yet.
And I also think that something people don't understand is that culture makes sense in the places where it's from. So one of the last times I went to South America, I was like looking forward to it because I love South America. But I was not looking forward to the wine. I love wine. I don't like South American wine. At least in my head, I didn't. But then I got there and I realized two things. Number one, like when you're in Brazil or Chile where it's like hot, humid, blah blah blah, you don't want to be drinking a Cabernet. You want to be drinking a Malbec or a lighter kind of wine, right? The soil there, when you're in that area, the flavors make sense. And then the second thing was they serve the red wines chilled.
Yeah.
And that changed everything. Yeah. Everything.
Yeah.
So I really do think, I mean, I make my money criticizing the United States, really. Like, I am a culture critic, but it's really hard to judge a culture if you haven't actually gone there and experienced it for yourself.
I mean, obviously, the United States has a lot of flaws, a lot of things to improve, but man, it's such a great country, right? Like, this is my thing. Like, once people don't want to come here, that's when we have problems, right?
Right.
Like, I know every country I've been to, they always say, how do I get to America? How do I prove the process? Everyone wants to come here, right?
Yeah. And you know what's something else that is great about us? And I just got done traveling abroad like 3 days ago. We have food from everywhere, right? We don't ourselves produce really good food, at least not white America, but we've done a great job of bringing like the best parts of everyone else's culture here. And like Brazil has amazing food, but you can't just like go to the corner and get Chinese food.
That's one thing one person posted on Facebook. They're like, man, all these Europeans are blown away. We'll go to Corral. Please go to some random ethnic restaurant, like in downtown, wherever. It could be Irish, Chinese, whatever. And your mind will really be blown away.
Yes, that is very true. I am the biggest fan of like hole in the wall restaurants. Like if you walk in and it's a little bit dark and like the front door is painted with a full flag, like that food's gonna be good.
And there's a kid at the thing. The kid like yelling out orders.
Yep. Or you see like you're the only white person in that restaurant, like that's gonna be good.
But it's just been crazy, like Waffle House, Buc-ee's, and so two more I thought of. Like, so it was this German lady at a restaurant, right? And they bought her water. They're like, "Why do you bring me water? I brought you water. That's rude of you. I didn't order water. I know, but we bring water to everyone. But I don't want water. But ma'am, everyone gets water. And you make everyone pay? No one pays. Well, no one pays. Free refills, blowing their mind away. The best story is the Japanese are in Dallas, right? And so this guy at the Mexican restaurant, they request bringing sausage and chips. They're like, oh man, I got a free sausage and chips. I have to eat it. I'm Japanese, right? He eats it. Of course, the waiter sees it, brings another one. By the third one, he posts on his TikTok, I don't know how I'm gonna do this, right? I can't keep accepting this gifts, right? 3 chips of salsa, right?
You gotta eat it. Now Waffle House, right? I'm a Waffle House lover, and I have this theory that when Waffle House hires people, they're not hiring servers. They're hiring actors to play the extremely typical diner.
I agree.
And it's just a whole bunch of like well-paid actors at Waffle House because, I mean, every single time.
It is so funny. All these Europeans across the world, like, go to Corral is blowing your mind. Like, Chick-fil-A is blowing your mind. Like, Raising Cane's, like, what in the world? Like, with this one guy, he ate at Chipotle's, Chili's, and Church's all the same day. People are like, slow your roll, dude. But it's like, to me, it's so heartwarming, right? So heartwarming, so happy. And then, so I don't know how much you know about college football, but the University of Auburn, like, they did a game there, friendly between Argentina and Iceland, right? And before every football game, they release the eagle, right? The eagle flies around the stadiums. They scream war, and Atlantic eagle. All the Europeans, like, they're just amazed, like, this country is so great to have eagles flying around the stadiums at will. Like, what's going on here, right?
Yeah. And, it is nice to see things like the Olympics or the World Cup, like, actually produce cultural exchange in the way that they're supposed to, And I kind of think it is because it seems like the world is kind of garbage right now, or like part of, I've been so heartened by the American response to all of this mess recently, which has been to like go out and make friends, go out and build teams, go hang out more in community, and I think like that's the part of the American spirit that will not be beat, is we're just nice. We're nice people. We want to have a nice community.
But everyone says that. They say America's so nice, so hospitable. They're so like do whatever you can for them.
Yeah. And that's part of it. I do think America is a great country. I think that we have a lot of work to do. But I mean,
But I think we have less work to do than a lot of other countries, though.
That's for sure.
And so this is crazy. So I'm sure you see how all the Koreans and Mexicans get along down in Guadalajara. So the joke is in 9 months there's gonna be a lot of Pablo Lees being born. Half Korean, half Mexican baby being born, right? Every video I see is like either like a Mexican guy with a Korean lady or vice versa, right?
Yep, I agree. And I think there's gonna be like a lot of Scots in Boston,
yeah.
and you know how it's like 9 months after Christmas, like there's always a lot of babies born in September and October.
It's the same way.
Yep.
A lot of international babies being born. And my city is a Scotland of Boston. My city is this place or this place, right? Man, I gotta teach this kid Korean and Mexican.
I love it.
It's such a fabulous time, yeah. I just hope they can keep on going, right? And what thing's crazy? Like, suppose all the Europeans were worried, like, that our stadiums are not big enough for soccer games, or like we're on a soccer nation. Like, we're a freaking sports nation, right? I mean, we sell out like high school football games, t-ball games, yeah, especially Seattle. Like, it was so insane on Seattle on Friday, Daniella. It's like, that shit crazy.
As someone who grew up out of the U.S., it's definitely been fun for me to finally see like Americans get into the World Cup. I think it's been pretty beautiful.
Yeah. So what's the plan of the book? So the book came out in January. Is the book going like you expected, or are you kind of like behind sales, or like you need to catch up, or?
No, sales are good. I mean, I think I've sold about 25,000 already. I mean, I've sold 100,000 books overall.
So quick question, right? What was your cut from your first book versus your cut for this book, if you can tell us that?
So for Uncultured, I get about $3 to $4 per book sale after I earn out my advance, which I hope to do in another year. And then I get royalties until 75 years after my death. My heirs get royalties. With Culting of America, which I own outright, I get about $31 for each book that I sell at a $35 price point. One of the things about Uncultured, and I say this so that other authors will think to do this, is that in my contract, I was an authorized reseller of the book. So on my own social media, I buy the book from Macmillan at the same rate that Barnes & Noble does, and then I literally mark it up with my signature, right, and sell it. So I make a lot more money reselling my book than I make through the publisher. And, you're always going to get more sales from the publishers because they have the big networks. So I don't think they actually care about my little piddling online sales, but it makes a huge difference for me. And that's how I funded the second book. But I will also say that I'm right now trying to pay back what feels like college loans for the second book. So even though sales are going really, really good, I keep continually being like, this is why people don't self-publish their own books at such a high level. So there's pros and cons to each side, but I very much like being in control of the entire process.
So I'm gonna do something kind of different, right? And so we're having here today my friend Tara, right? Tara is like one of your big fans. So I asked Tara, do you have any questions you want to ask Daniella?
I did write one down.
Okay.
I was wondering if you can tell when the negative feedback that comes at you from any of the platforms, can you tell if it's a former or current cult member or someone who's like, can you tell just like the voice, or like there's someone coming at you from them being in that kind of organization?
The answer is yes. And especially if it's a large cult or a cult that I've studied a lot. For example, Scientologists all use the same answers. Alcoholics Anonymous members all use the same answers. People who are mad that I'm calling the military a cult all use the same answers. So it's kind of in the language and in the inability to question. Yeah.
That has to make it easier. Like you're like, oh.
It does.
I know who you are.
has. And also, as I've said before, like one of the reasons I'm good at this is because active cult members have been talking trash to me for 20 plus years now. And so in the beginning, it's just, I think if you're going to do anything online, obviously, you just have to get used to people disliking you.
Yeah.
And understanding that you're doing something for your audience and finding your audience, finding people like you is very helpful to me. And actually, one of the things I have gotten back from heavily interacting with my followers, whether that's on social media or in meetups like we're going to have this week, is that when I'm getting the trash from people, I can remember that, like, no, this actually helps the people that I'm trying to help, and everything else is just noise.
Tara, real fast, can you tell us like how you found Daniella? Like how you came across her?
I think just TikTok. I was just, and I think your hair stopped me. And I listened, and it was what I needed, right? At the beginning of the news cycle exhaustion, it was facts that I needed to hear. And also, like you were saying, you don't want to be a deity to people, but you also like, I listen to you for other people to go seek out, right? Because I trust that your line of communication, which is very direct, speaks to me and helps me take that emotion away from it and remove the exhaustion.
Yeah, I appreciate that.
That's make you feel good, right?
Yeah. I mean, one of my, and I think this comes from knowing cult leaders, that they just say all these big things and then they never get done. And so one of my responses to almost everything that comes out in the news is like, well, let's wait. Let's see what this is going to happen. Let's break down what the logistics of doing this thing would be like, and then let it develop, let it go from there. I was actually so proud of my audience on the day that he like tweeted that we were going to invade Karg Island. And I was like, okay, y'all, let's not spiral. And I didn't see anyone spiral. I was like, okay, yes, people are starting to understand that, like, just because a leader puts something out there doesn't mean
A lot of times
it is said and done.
Regardless to the last time they do like do tests, like throw some like throw a feeler out there, right? Like how do people react, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So you do a lot of events across the nation, right? First, like why do those events? How does it come about, and what do you want to get out of these events?
Well, one of the things, as you know, I was building my audience, writing this book for 3 years, and then everyone asked if there was going to be a book tour, and the book tour is just me paying for everything. So the deal that I made with my audience is that when I travel, I will throw we call them knitting cult happy hours, and I will let people come to see me. It has now evolved to the point where we have 90 people coming out to see us this Thursday in Seattle, and people
Is it Seattle or Tacoma?
It's Seattle.
Seattle
Yeah.
now? I thought it was Tacoma for some reason.
No, I'm actually going to a women's veteran luncheon in Tacoma that day, and then doing an event in Seattle that evening.
Things, okay.
So I'll just be way overstimulated and talking to 100 people. Yep. But why I do them, I think it's, first of all, it's not always true that an online community translates to in person.
Yeah.
But I have learned a lot, both from my online interaction and doing in-person events, that people just want to be heard. I mean, I did an event in New Orleans, and this young dude drove down from Connecticut to New Orleans to literally listen to my talk.
That's insane.
Have me sign his book and say thank you for explaining my military experience to me. And then he drove back the same night. And that blows my mind.
I remember it was in Dallas at the military care con. I remember someone drove for like Mesquite. I thought that was a long way. Connecticut? Good
Yeah,
Lord.
no. And for the book launch, we had people come from literally all over the country, which was really cool.
Here's one for you. Like, suppose you do an event, right? Suppose there's 100 people there, right? How you do this? Like, you're talking to like someone. You don't really know them, but they're talking. You're like, your mom, like, man, I got 94 more people I need to talk to, right? Because how do you like politely like, hey, Jason, thanks for your support, but get the fuck out of here, right?
I think it's just a skill that I've developed.
Yeah.
And I also think that everyone understands that they're not the only person at that event, and I need to kind of like move around the room.
Yeah.
I do encourage people to sit together at tables
Yeah.
so that I can spend more time kind of
Yeah.
like talking to the group. But I definitely sometimes just have to be like, this is so great. Thank you for coming.
Yeah.
Like bust in and
Yeah.
then walk away to go talk to other people.
That's definitely a skill that I need to get better at. Yeah.
Yeah. And I prepare for these events to just essentially be like weddings.
Okay.
Like everyone there wants to talk to me. I'm not going to feel like I get to talk to any individual person enough, but there's a reason
There's
that
only so much
people
time-
show up to
Yeah,
these.
only so much time in the day, right? Or the event, right? Like your events are like what, 1 hour, 2 hours long.
Usually about 3.
3 hours divided by 90. It's like barely a minute per person.
Yep. And it's always the people that are able to hang out till the very end. At the very end of the night, there's always like 10 of us sitting around a
Yeah.
table just
That's
talking.
my thing. Like I think with networking, but my thing is like for advice for introverts, try to get there 30 minutes ahead of time or 30 minutes afterwards, right?
Yep.
Because the crowd disappears and you have like more ability to have like one-on-one time that people want to talk to.
Very true.
Yeah. So with your events, right? I'm sure this has never happened, right? Do you like meet someone? Well, let me put this like, how do you handle this, right? Seattle, you event, right? You meet someone, right? You meet Jason, right? And you're like, damn, Jason's a goddamn jackass. Like, I never want to see Jason again, right? Like, how do you handle it, right? And they like, man, let's connect on social media, but you just like be polite. Let's connect. But in your mind, like, there's something wrong with Jason, right? I will never do anything with Jason. Like, when you're like a spider senses go off, so to speak.
Yeah, it's usually just try to be polite and move away.
Yeah.
Fortunately, I haven't really had anyone get like very feisty at an event. A lot of times I have my husband there who's a big military guy and he's good at like stepping in and getting involved.
Have you had any stalkers yet, female or male?
I have had some people that I have had to block because they were getting really intense, but it has all been online so far. I haven't had anything too bad in person.
That's one thing I realize. A lot of people we're public, but like it is not like I'm sure you don't give out your personal phone number, your address, social security numbers, right? Because there is like a kind of like certain things we do to protect ourselves, right?
Right. Yeah. And this is even another part of it is that like people will ask me, oh, do you have some way I can connect with you? And I'm always like, sure, email admin@uncultureyourself.com. And sometimes you see people get offended or see them like be like, oh, well, you think you're really important. And it's just like that. This is how you get a hold of me. And I don't have a public facing way that you can contact me on purpose.
So this happened on TikTok a while ago. There was this couple, is a black lady and a white guy. They live on a farm, I think, in Alabama, right? They have like millions of followers, right? And they did a post one time like these jokers actually set up their fucking house, right? Like somehow they found the house and try to get pictures. And like, are you kidding right now? You're at our fucking house, right? With our kids, right? And like people take it too far sometimes.
I sometimes have gifts that show up to my house, and I think people don't understand that that's usually creepy and scary.
So creepy.
Sometimes I can tell that they went, with Amazon Prime, you can send something to somebody's house without knowing their address. So sometimes it's that, but sometimes it just seems creepy. And then a funny one was a few weeks ago in DC, I was coming out of an event where I was wasted. And it was a military event. I was there with another woman. We were just having fun. And this woman came up to me with her family and her kids. And my only thought was, I don't want them to see how wasted I am. And I don't want to embarrass myself in front of these children, right?
Yeah.
These people's children. And that was, she actually contacted me later and thanked me. And then I told her how wasted I was. And we had a funny conversation.
I couldn't tell. So in April, we both took part, I think, on Military Career Conference. Can you talk about your experience with that?
Yeah, it was a great experience for me. It felt like, first of all, I'm from Dallas in many ways, so it's always coming home, and my mom was there with me. Being in a military space is always very male dominated, and being in an entrepreneur space is always very male dominated. And I think those are the spaces where people underestimating me pisses me off the most. So I have fun, but I also get upset. But I thought it was a really great event. And I think what conferences do really well is energy and pumping you up, and it's always great for that.
And so I might need to say this out loud, but one thing that's kind of like funny, and maybe not funny, right? And so I have a good friend, Taylor Ray, right? She was at a conference, right? And so I think there's like a Cine Royale night on Thursday night, and Taylor was speaking the next night, right? And Daniella says, "Hey, Jason, do you think Taylor's gonna be okay? Like, can he handle stuff?" And I thought Daniella meant, Taylor's never spoken in front of military people before, but Daniella meant no. She's around all these military dudes. Can she handle herself around military dudes, right? And I was thinking, no, no, can she handle herself like giving a speech in front of military people? And they're like, no, Jason, like, see all the military dudes around here? So she's like 25, real attractive, right? Oh shit, I didn't cross my mind, right?
And this is unfortunately one of the things about being in a military audience is there are a lot of great people and there are a lot of predators.
Yeah.
And those two, I think, don't know how to recognize each other. I think just today in this audience here, we have 3 men that I consider to be very, very safe. And none of y'all are good at recognizing the predators.
No. I'm like, what do you mean? Taylor's good, hell,
When our friend Dan first read Uncultured, he was like, I didn't think that any of the women I had served with had dealt with any of that. So I went and asked them. And they, of course, all said that they had all dealt with it their whole lives.
Yeah.
And I will say, like, this is part of why I do this, though, is because when you and Dan and Tom, like when the good guys who are the military guys get clued into that, then you become the best protectors, right? Then you're watching her back for the rest of the time and you're calling out other guys that are being creepy, and people will pay more attention to you and to my husband than they will to me.
Here's one for you. Your daughter's like 9, 10, 11 right now?
10.
10. So she's senior high school. She says, Mom, Dad, I know what you're going to say, but like, I want to go to West Point.
I say, not in a million years.
You're like, Mom, I'll be 18 soon. I have a senator's signature right now. I'm pretty much guaranteed acceptance at West Point. Oh, whatever it is, right?
Yeah, I mean,
like I see the background, like it help you and Dad like have a good life. It kind of bounce you off. I want to be on my own, blah blah blah. You're like, kid, ain't no freaking way. Or you're like, be supportive.
Yeah, I mean, first of all, it's not that realistic of a question because my kid is just not that kid that's ever going to try it. I don't think, but obviously we know that once she makes a firm decision, we will support it and we will be on her team and we will be there for her when she has the positive or negative experiences. But we both very much do not want her to go into the military, and we would spend a lot of time and energy trying to help her change her mind. That's for sure.
Even bribing her.
Even in the beginning when I started speaking, this question was hard for me because I'm like, I do want strong women to be in the military. I'm proud of my career. I'm proud of what I did. When the military hit 20% women, I was like, this is the beginning. 20% is when you're able to start addressing subconscious negative stereotypes for your demographic, right? And I want as close to 50% as the military can be with women, the better it's going to be. I truly believe that. But I don't want it to be my daughter, and I don't want it to be my friends' kids.
Yeah.
Which means I don't, like, for any individual woman, I just think when you're going into a system that's not designed for you, it's going to be a really hard life. And I don't want that for the individual woman that's going to have to deal with it.
So you don't want that burden on any female, so to speak.
Pretty much. Yeah. It's like, I want, when I think of it as an autonomous mass or unpersonalized people, my language skills are getting bad with the wine, we can now see. But the best way I can say it is like, I don't want it to be my kid or my friend's kids.
How about this one, right? So obviously you want your kid to go to college, right? And suppose she still goes to y'all senior high school, about to graduate. She said, you know what? If you pay for my college at least $200,000, whatever, instead of give $200,000, probably waste some money, whatever, just give it to me now. I have this business idea.
Yes. this one is much more realistic because my kid is very artistic and very creative. And, I have actually learned this from my husband's participation or willingness to support me in my business, where I'm like, he's the silent partner, but I still have to convince him of the solidness of my business the same way I would have to with any partner or investor. And so that is what I think the standard I would hold my kid to, right? Like I don't know of any 18-year-old that could convince me to invest $200,000 in their business. And so you'd have to work pretty hard to show me that this was a good investment.
Here's one for you. In your mind, what's going to make you a success parent? Like, suppose your daughter's like in her 30s, right? Or your daughter's like 31. What needs to happen for you to say to yourself, you know what? Me and Tom, we were successful parents.
Yeah. We came up with this idea during COVID, and I don't know what the version of this will be, but when COVID hit, our daughter was 4, and our next door neighbors had a 19-year-old and a 21-year-old. And those children moved hell or high water to get home to quarantine with their parents for an unknown period of time.
That's a good one.
And neither of us, could you pay us any amount of money to go quarantine with our parents for an unknown period of time?
Yeah.
Even my mom, who I love and get along with and is amazing, I don't think I would want to do that. And so we immediately then we were like, that's our goal. Like, that's our parenting goal is, number one, we're not raising a kid, we're raising an adult. Right? And we want to raise an adult that we get along with and like to hang out with and that wants to get along with and hang out with us. And that has influenced all of our parenting. But I think I just hung out with my 26-year-old former exchange student and her parents and went all around the country with her. And like everything good that happens to her, she wants to share it with her parents first. And I think that is, another thing we've said is like, when she gets in trouble, we want her first thought, like real trouble, like adult trouble out in the world. We want her first thought to be, I need mom and dad, not I need to hide this from mom and dad.
I think a lot of people, they think, I'm a successful parent if my kid is like a lawyer, doctor, $1 million. To me, I think it's more simple than that, right? You're a successful parent if, at the end of the day, your kids are contributing to society. It would be as simple as have a paying job, paying taxes. If they're doing that, I think you've done your job. Now, if your kid's on welfare all their life, they're robbing, stealing, taking advantage of people, con artists, no. But if it's simple, like have a job at Amazon, fulfillment warehouse, paying taxes, I think you've done your job.
I want my kid to be happy and satisfied with her life, and I want my kid to still have a good relationship with me. And outside of that, I try not to have too much pressure or expectation.
Yeah. That's a good question. You talk about this. I think about this all the time too, right? Like I pretty successful Army career. I do a few things right. You and Tom both successful, right? Like when someone's successful, do you think that puts undue pressure on their kid to live up to the expectations? Like, I mean, bad example, like Michael Jordan. All these kids try to play basketball, and they fell way short of Michael Jordan status, right? Is there a concern, like, like, just by being you're putting too much pressure on your kid?
I don't think with my specific kid, she has that, and I think like even in mine and Tom's relationship, it works out that we're very, very different. He's very happy for me when I get a book deal, and I'm very happy for him when he just got into his master's in public policy, because we just have completely different things. And there have actually been studies that show that in a couple, when you both have the same goals, like you're both in the same career field, it can be contentious.
I've heard that, yeah.
And so I don't think my kid wants to be me or even sees me as particularly cool. So I don't think we have that right now. I think when she grows up, she'll see me as cool. But I also will say on the flip side, my mom has been very, very good at never doing well, you think you have it hard.
Yeah.
Guess what I went through?
Yeah.
And so I have never done that with her. I've worked very hard to not do that. So I think she's growing up as her own person, and I think it's fine. But she has, for example, asked me if she could help with choreography for the musical. and then later started telling someone that she was going to be the director of choreography for the musical. And I told the 10-year-old that no, she is not in fact qualified for that. And she's going to have to get herself qualified, like.
So kind of subjects. Of course, David Beckham and what's his wife's name? Posh Spice?
Victoria Beckham.
So I guess that's like some kind of, all they have this like reality TV show, right? And it's Posh Spice talking about, she grew up in this hard-working family, middle-class family, dad worked hard, and David Beckham speaks out, be honest, dear, what car did your dad pick up from school? Well, that's not the point. We work hard. No, answer the question. What car do you get picked up in? A Rolls Royce. And he just left, right? Like, how hard working is your dad? Here's a Rolls Royce, right?
Yeah, and that is something that we do discuss with our kid a lot, is the privilege that she has, and just the fact that pretty much anything that she's ever wanted gets bought for her.
Yeah.
And now we're at the point where it's funny because she's trying to be like, no, I'm not going to do that, and then I'll just be like, well, no, I don't think I'm going to take you to get your nails done next time. Like.
Yeah,
so
that's some privilege right there. 10-year-old girl getting the nails done, yeah.
Right. And so we have an awareness that there's privilege. I had only one child on purpose, and part of that was because I wanted to be able to give her everything she wanted.
Yeah.
But I still expect there to be gratitude and sort of
have manners, be humble, like be a good person.
You still have to learn how to get along with people.
Yeah.
We're not just going to pay your way through life as an adult, even though we might always be helping you out in some way, which is something I think I've earned the privilege to do, is continue to support my kid. But like, for example, I've never been a punishment parent. We just haven't even found anything that works for her.
Yeah.
So from the age of about 3, it's like, we're teaching you have to get along with us.
Yeah.
Like, you didn't choose to live here, but until you're 18, you have to choose and figure out how to get along with us. In the same way, my husband and I have to figure out how to get along with each other.
Yeah.
And there are consequences, right? It's just like real life consequences. And we're not like, yes, she's going to be a Nepo baby, but no, she's not just going to get to wear all that privilege on her sleeve all the time. She's definitely going to have to like cooperate.
So maybe not a Porsche for a 60th birthday, but maybe a Ford Mustang for a 60th birthday.
She wants a red pickup truck, and we have told her that it's definitely going to be used. Yes.
Man, that's crazy. Here's one for you. So let's suppose, like, we'll take Seattle, right? Suppose like you're like on the south side of Seattle, you're kind of poor. Here you have like no resources, like your parents are poor, you're on welfare. But it's Seattle, right? Would you rather be that person or the person who lives in Bumfuck, Arkansas, in a town of 30 people, no internet access?
I would rather be the person in Seattle. Like, I would rather be the person close to libraries.
Yeah, easily, yeah.
And the variety of resources that you have in large cities.
Yeah.
I think the isolation of small towns is very difficult.
Because a lot of people talk about, like black, white, economic, rich, economic poor. But I think the big thing is like access in urban and no access to rural. I think that's the one thing we have to solve some kind of way. I
mean, just when I hear people tell stories of, because I mean, a lot of people, and they tell me their cult stories or their, my dad was an evangelical pastor and we weren't allowed to this. And then they'll get to, and I just spent all of my time in the library and all of my time reading for escapism. And that makes my little heart hurt, because what I would have done with a library, you know, like total isolation versus not total isolation are very different things. And so I love it for all those kids that they had the library access. But I definitely think, and as we are recording this, my youngest sibling is here visiting from Midland, Texas, and is just walking around Seattle right now and having a blast.
That's when like Seattle gets a lot of shit. I shit on Seattle a lot, but Seattle is like, especially when I try to do tech stuff, Seattle's a great place to be, right? And especially the World Cup stuff going on. It's a lot of cool stuff going on in Seattle, right?
Yeah, there's a reason we come back to visit all the time.
Like, I joke around, like, today it's beautiful. Like, when Seattle's nice, it is nice. But when it's not, it's fucking not.
I always say Seattle is the prettiest place in the continental United States for 3 months a year. And the rest of the time it can be kind of a struggle. But no, I mean, Seattle was the first place we settled. It's where my husband is from, and I thought I might live here forever.
Yeah.
And every time we come here, I think we might move back because of how much they love it. So, I mean,
It's
it's
nice here,
a good
right?
place.
Next, let's talk about your fashion sense. Like, how did you become this fashion diva, right? How did this come about? Like this, like the hair, the outfits. Like, is this obviously it's a conscious decision? Or like, how do you like this outfit you have on? Like, how did you decide to wear this, right?
Yeah. So when I got my book deal, my first book deal, my first thought with literal financial freedom being conferred on me, my first thought was, okay, if I'm an author, I'm going to wear whatever I want for the rest of my life. And I recently had a friend say, like, I don't think I've ever seen you in jeans and a t-shirt. And I was like, yeah, I don't ever wear that.
Yeah.
But it's also been a developing skill, right? So like when I got out of the Army, probably like most women who were in the Army for a significant portion of their adult life, like I didn't know anything about how to dress. And I started with earrings, big earrings, and collecting big earrings. And that was specifically because we weren't allowed to wear earrings in the Army. And so I wanted to do that. And then, you know, I tell this to women now. I'm like, pick one color. I picked maroon. And then get a whole bunch of items in that and everything else neutral. And then get everything on that color line. And by the time you get to a contrast color, which for me was teal, I'm like, now you've got it. But the biggest part, and I often say, like, I think the difference between looking ridiculous and looking fashionable is just confidence. So I think the biggest part is just being like, yeah, I want to wear that because I want to, and there's no reason for it. You also have to be cool with always being overdressed. But I, as an extrovert, actually like the connection of that. Like people come up to me all the time just to tell me they like my hair or they like my outfit.
And you have to be cool with people like, oh my God, that's some bright colored hair you have there, you know?
Right, exactly. You also have to be cool with people judging you and being like, why
Like,
is
wow,
she
you
wearing...
look like a peacock.
Why is she wearing a knitted cape and walking down the street, you know? So that is that. This outfit that I'm wearing now, so at this point, my audience actually sends me things that they think I will like. And I do opening videos, you know? So it's like every 5 days, my YouTube channel becomes one of those channels where kids open toys and other kids watch them, but it's like for adults. And so like this, I'm wearing this onyx and diamond ring that somebody just sent to me. So somebody sent me this dress and I liked it, but I decided I was going to chop it in half and make it a 2-piece thing. So that's what I did.
Nice.
And then there's one part of it that is also really personal to me is that the crafting and the choosing my own fashion and choosing my own clothes has allowed me to answer the question of cultural appropriation. Being a white girl that was raised all over the world and has touched almost every single culture. And what I have learned is that when you buy the things yourself and you make it and you put your own design on it, like nobody from that culture is upset that you're wearing that. And so I'm literally like kind of like knitting together all of these different pieces of my life.
Remind me, a friend of mine, her name is like, she's a software of Microsoft, but she goes by Tyler Stitcher. She just opened a knitting store in Concourse C at the airport. So I need to connect you with her.
Okay,
She
yeah.
makes-
I'll
she
go
makes all
check
kinda-
it out
she makes
while
all-
we're
She makes all kind of
on our way back. I've always wondered why there are not more knitting stores in airports.
Yeah.
Like-
She just opened one up, yeah.
Amazing. I want to talk to her and I want to have her on my show because like that seems like gyms and craft shops. These are two things that need to exist in airports.
I don't know about gyms, airports.
I mean, you have to have a shower available, but
who's gonna go work out?
I would have back in my heyday.
So you go airport that
I mean,
events
not
like 3 hours ahead of time.
normally, but it's more for like when you have a 16-hour flight delay.
But how many people have 16-hour flight delays?
I think a lot.
I don't know. I
think
think most people are smart enough not to do a 16-hour flight delay.
I don't know. But definitely, well, no, nobody plans for that. It's like when it's unplanned.
But I don't think it happens unplanned enough to have a business though.
Maybe not,
It's just
but
me, right?
I don't know. We show up 3 hours early to go to the lounge. So
I mean,
if the lounge had gyms.
I mean, I show up early all the time. I show up early all the time.
But the craft stores, like there's no excuse for airports not to have craft stores. Like they have every other kind of shopping at this point.
Yeah.
And one of the things that I have learned is so many people craft. It's like
That still blows my mind.
it's one of the things that brings people together.
It still blows my mind. Like craft, like, are you 97,000 years old right now?
Yes. And I don't even know why people call them grandma hobbies because they're so awesome.
The fact you still don't really stab yourself to death is still amazing to me.
I do sometimes puncture my thumb because I'm so exact with the knitting.
Tell us what's the process you said? It's something like stab the person and do something, whatever.
Oh yeah, it's the 4 steps for doing a knit stitch. So it's stab him, strangle him, scoop out his guts, throw him off a cliff. My kid, when I taught her how to knit when she was 5, developed a nicer one that was about launching astronauts to the moon.
That's a much better.
That's how she taught her friends how to knit.
That's a much better one. Much better one, yeah.
I mean, but I do have to say this. I think it's hilarious that knitting needles are allowed through TSA, right?
That's insane.
I need it, so I'm glad that they are allowed. But absolutely are these deadly weapons, and I could kill you with them right now if I wanted to.
You can go to the airport with the knitting needles, but TSA has said do not put a ranch in your on the board thing because it's liquid.
I mean, and it's so funny too because like sometimes they'll decide that they don't like your needle pack. And so they'll open it up and they'll take out all the biggest needles. Yeah. But the thing about the big needles is those are yarn needles and they're super dull. Yeah. Like I'm not going to try to kill you with a yarn needle. I'm going to try to kill you with a needle this big that's for sewing and I'm going to stick it right in your temple. Come on.
So what's your advice to, like, suppose someone's in the military right now and they're getting out, we'll say January the 1st. Let's suppose their term leave starts January 1st. What's your advice to someone getting out of the military right now? What should he do?
This was actually in my TED Talk, which is like people, purpose, and processes to follow, right? Like you're going to miss the community. So start building your new community now, if you can. If you're already in the area where you're going to get out or retire from, start going to networking events. If not, there are online groups for everything you can possibly think of. And then there's like the mission. You're going to be jonesing for the mission. And that is something super important. And I hope that eventually, as you become more and more of a civilian, you won't need that mission as strongly. But I think when we get out of the military, we need that. So like, what is going to be your next mission? You don't have to know that already, but you need to start looking for that. And then start figuring out how to dress yourself, what you like. This is for men and women. You know, I had this discussion with my husband when he got out and I was trying to get him to wear this red leather vest with a men's lace shirt. And he was like, I just don't think that's my style. And I was like, I don't think you have a style. I think since you were 17, you have had fatigues and workout clothes and lounge clothes. And so you need to develop your style. And this is a thing for everyone who gets out of cults. And I know you're laughing, but it's important because appearance control is a big part of cults. And appearance control is a big part of the military, right? So whether that's, are you going to grow a beard, which most men are trying to do? Are you going to grow your hair long? What do you want to look like? That is going to end up being a huge part of your deconstruction and your learning. And it's always embarrassing. It's called delayed adolescence, right? You're supposed to do all that experimenting when you're a teenager and a young adult. And we didn't get to do it because we were in the military. So it's going to be hard. And especially for women. Like I've heard so many stories of grown 30, 40-year-old women just crying their eyes out in their closets on their first day of work or their first day of civilian life because they don't know how to dress themselves. So figure out who your new friends are going to be, figure out what your new mission is going to be, and figure out how you want to dress.
I think big thing is community, right? Because people like don't get like in the military, like I don't care where your rank is, where you are. Like, I mean, maybe it's just my experience. Like every weekend is like, hey, there's something going on, a birthday party. There's this. Everyone invites you to everything. People you work with, people over here. Like there's always something to go to. Hey, my kid's playing a game, can come to, right? It's not like the civilian world, right? Like you work at Microsoft, whatever the case it be, it's 9 to 5. There's none of this. Hey, Jason, me and my wife are going to see, DJ Diesel play the EDM concert. You want to come along? That's none of that shit, right?
Yeah.
And it's tough, right? It's tough.
And that is why it's like, again, like, so I will say that like cults do some things right. And those things are mission and purpose and community. And I think there's a reason that so many neurodivergents and misfits actually enjoy being in the military, because you're given a community. And when you get out, you're no longer given that community. People don't. In the military, people in your unit have to care about you.
Yeah.
They do.
Especially overseas.
Yeah. And you're just not going to have that anymore. You're not going to have that closeness, and you're going to have to learn how to develop it. And I actually think there's a 2-year period that is really dangerous for veterans.
Yeah, I agree.
After we get out of the military, and if we don't find that new community,
what's my life? What's my purpose?
Yes.
What am I doing here?
If you don't find that new purpose and that new community, it gets very hard. And I have a lot of mixed feelings about volunteering, because it's very easy to get exploited, as we know. But I think that I will tell veterans to go volunteer, because I'm like, first of all, you never know who you're volunteering next to, so it's a great way to make connections. But it might just save you in the beginning.
I tell military veterans too, like, I think a lot of military veterans, they get out and they go like the local job fair, right? Like, it's a bunch of military veterans. Go where you're the only military veteran, right? Be the only person, be the only female, black person, be the only person there, right? Like, if you're young, going out of college, go to like Rotary Club, Chamber of Commerce. If you're in the military, Fort Lewis or JBLM, go to tech event. Be where the only one, because it's gonna draw attraction to you, and people want to hear you talk, I think.
Yeah, and this is the opposite of what we're taught in the military, which is don't stand out.
Yeah.
And I would say, like, in the civilian world, stand out.
Yeah.
Like, don't be afraid of standing out, right? So we've mentioned my rainbow hair a couple times, and if you're not watching the video of this, you're not getting the real image. But like, the front of my hair is a full neon rainbow, and it's expensive, Jason. I mean, I pay people literally. They're like, "How do you keep it so pretty?" I'm like, money.
So you don't do yourself?
No, it costs me $200 to $300 every 3 months. It's a lot of money, and every time I do it, I'm like, I'm going back to brown. But I can't, because it's so good for branding. It's so good for recognizability. It has become part of my identity as being rainbow haired. And it's just like, it's brought so many good things to my life. And like, we are taught in America also, don't stand out.
Yeah.
And I just think for the most part, standing out, especially if you've chosen how you want to present yourself, is only a good thing.
But that's like, to me, bad and crazy advice. Because like, the people most successful are the ones who stand out, right?
Right.
Because regardless of you think about Elon Musk, he stands out, right? Like, Michael Jordan stood out. People who are successful stand out,
Yeah.
And I think another thing, like, military veterans get wrong, right? They make the mistake, right? Whether they retire or get out of the army, right? They're like, I'm getting out in 2027. I'm going to buy a house. I'm buying a new car. Like, damn, dude, you just, like, added all these bills into yourself, right? And in that, when you retire, like, people say, retire at 50%. No, you don't. It's 35%. Because housing don't count, right? And then, like, then you have to get a job you don't hate, that you hate. And then 6 months later, you lose the job because you hate the job,
Yeah. And I also think one of the things that sometimes a lot of people do wrong is going back to school right away. Right away. Because, like, the amount of times I almost started an MBA.
You got to decompress.
And, like, I would have hated that. When you get out of the military, you get 6 months of unemployment, right? Use that.
No one does, though.
And save.
No one does.
Your job will save your benefits, because getting a degree that you care about is going to be so much better.
How about this? Everyone says, get out of military. Let me get my PMP or my HBP or 3141, or let me be a contractor.
Look, the whole concept of getting out of the military, like, it's run by a colonel who's never had to apply for a job in his life, right? Like, go through the classes, take what you need, but like, you're going to have to figure out your own path. And one of the first things you have to figure out when you get out of the military is, what do you want to be when you grow up?
Yeah.
Even if you think you're grown up, right? You were how old when you got out of the military?
46, 47.
Yeah, I'm sure you felt pretty grown up.
Yeah.
And you also didn't know that you were going to be doing this
No fucking
here
clue.
now.
The only thing I knew was this. I did not want to be major cabinets when I got out, right?
Right.
I didn't want to contract your job on Fort Lewis, like, hey, sir. Like,
Yeah.
I want
And And
clean
like
break.
most of us didn't exactly get to choose our jobs or our branches, right? Like mostly that was decided needs of the Army. And like some of us loved it. But I mean, I moved to Seattle and I started doing security and business intelligence because that's what I thought my resume said. And I never actually asked myself, like, what do I want to do?
Yeah.
And as soon as I asked myself, what do I want to do? What am I
Yeah.
passionate about? What makes me happy? That's when I started getting on the path. And it has evolved to be very different in the last 10 years. But I've loved it the whole time. Like, I've loved the path
Like,
the whole
you
time.
told me 10 years ago I'll have a top 2% podcast in the world as an introvert. Like, get the fuck out of here. Like, I would say, stop, you're like, dude, stop smoking crack. Right?
Hey, I don't think I knew that. Congratulations. That's amazing.
Fast.
Wait, we can't do a toast with an empty glass, so we gotta do this up here. I mean, I think the concept of the podcast where you just have drinks with interesting people and talk to them is
I know, right?
brilliant.
Yeah.
Again, like, you know, and
Who fucking knew?
that's something, maybe this is a good place to wrap up, that I think is really cool about right now.
Yeah.
Right? Where I say, like, I asked so many people for advice and I got good advice and bad advice, but there was nobody out there that I was going to meet that was going to be like, hey, call yourself Knitting Cult Lady and you'll have $1 million a year brand.
Yeah.
Like, I had to create that. And I had to be willing to like get out there and fail and do all these things. But like, there are no rules. I keep telling people there are no rules right now.
No,
like
everyone's journey is their own journey.
Part of what is hard right now is we're living through the dissolution of a bunch of systems, right? And so everything feels like whiplash and everything feels crazy.
Nothing's real.
But there are also no rules right now, right? Like everyone running for office in Texas is trying to get on my show. At my book event in Louisiana, I had one candidate for Senate and 2 candidates for Congress dying to come share the microphone with me. And I'm called Knitting Cult Lady and I wear corsets on the internet, you know? Like there are no rules right now. And the amount of people that told me that I would never find success doing the things I wanted to do is a lot.
I mean, you talked earlier about you as just for some creators, and like y'all did CNN. I like every day Joe Rogan. I mean, media is a dying breed right now. Joe Rogan outdoes them. Lex Fridman outdoes them. Like, it's like I don't know, right?
Yeah, no. I mean, I think we're living through the death of traditional media, especially because nobody has confidence in them right now, right? Like everyone thinks that media is corrupt.
I mean, the days of Walter Cronkite are long gone.
And it's also interesting, though, because, like, in some ways, I feel like I'm sort of a Walter Cronkite, right? Because I don't answer to the interests of anybody else except what I think my audience wants to hear and what I want to talk about. And it's so funny to see the administration, like, going after specific anchors on the media because, like, I've been deplatformed 10 times and I just come back, you know? So it's like, you can't play whack-a-mole with creators anymore, you know? And in someone in the government of Virginia is publicly beefing with content creators right now to the point that she's going to get herself sued. And it's just so funny, but it is also like, we have the eyes on us. You and I have the eyes on us right now, and people can like it or not like it. But people are listening to us.
Yeah.
And so it's a very interesting time. You know, I do think that 10 years from now, Tom Young is going to be a senator and I'm going to be a media mogul and y'all can come hang out with us in DC.
Hey, you spoke in existence. So before we go, let's talk something kind of serious, right? So military depression, right? That's a big thing, right? And so I might get slack for this, right? But for the longest time, right, since before I got in the military, right? There's always been this thing: 22 people kill themselves every day, right? I'll get slack for this. Like, how is it still 22 a day after 15 years, right? Like, where does these stats come from? You think, right? Is it really 22 a day? Is it 30 a day? Like, why is it so consistent?
What I've heard most recently is it's down to 17% today, actually, and I think that sound bites just get popular. You know, like I actually quoted once on LinkedIn that 1% of people decide to join the military, and I got ripped apart because it's not actually true. That's just a soundbite. It was like
it's not.
It was like 1% were volunteering during an active war. Like there was a specific thing where it was used in that speech where it was true, but it's not true overall, right? 13% of the United States are veterans.
And my thing too, let's suppose it is 22 a day, right? But is it 22 a day of like Iraqi, Afghanistan veterans, or like, I think it's different to like Afghan, Iraqi veteran, or like somebody who's like World War II, 95 years old, they have no family. Of course, a life is life, is off pressure or whatever, but if you're 95 and you're like got cancer, you have no family, like, and you do like, you know, like, I don't think the numbers, I don't know. I know I'm being like kind of dark right here.
No, I don't actually know the breakdown of the numbers, but I am a veteran who has been suicidal, and I have a brother who's a veteran who we lost to suicide, and I think that we approach suicide prevention the completely wrong fucking way in the military and out of the military. You know, like in the military, all we do is say, talk to your buddy. Talk to your buddy, talk to your buddy. Unless they're a woman, then don't talk to them. But like, talk to your buddy. And people do this in the civilian world too. And for humans who are not suicidal, they truly do believe that saying that like, hey, we love you and we care about you is prevention.
But you're in that mode, you don't love yourself.
I think there's one reason that people kill themselves, and it is loneliness. Every single time, it is loneliness.
They see no path forward.
Other than sort of like terminal end of life suicide decisions, right? But like unplanned suicide, I think it is loneliness. And I think you can be lonely in a crowd.
Oh yeah, definitely, no doubt.
And I think that when people are in that suicide mindset and they're told, but people love you, the response is, yeah, but if you loved me, you wouldn't want to be in this much pain.
Yeah.
Right?
Do you really love me?
When my brother completed and other veterans who I was close to completed, one of my first responses that is so hard to talk about is I felt kind of relieved and happy for them because I know they are no longer in that pain.
Yeah.
I immediately had to then deal with my grief and everyone else's grief and all of that stuff. But I know that for them, their pain is over. But I will say this, one of the things my mom did that saved my life a lot of times was, first of all, you can just be there with the person, right? So I would call my mom when I was feeling suicidal and just be on the phone with her.
Yeah.
And she never once asked me not to do it.
Yeah.
And she never once made it about her, right? She was just there with me. So there's two things that I think are really helpful. One is that understanding that suicidal ideology is not a constant. You get there, and if you can get through that moment, you might not get back to it for another 3 to 6 months, right? So getting through that moment is very important. So getting your person through that moment is very important. And second of all, my mom told me this, and I don't think she had real statistics on this. She doesn't remember it. But she told me that her doctor had told her that 95% of depression was chemical imbalance. But we always think that it makes sense, right? We always think it's because of this or that or whatever. And she was like, so whenever you feel this depressed, like you want to do something, go talk to a doctor. And even just, one time I was feeling very, very suicidal, and I was on Lunesta. And so I just Googled, does Lunesta give suicidal ideology? And everything popped up blaring, stop, stop, stop. You don't want to do this. It's the drugs, blah, blah, blah. And like, I never actually pursued it further to find out if that was true, but it stopped me in that moment. So I think one of the pieces of advice that I think is very valuable is like, this could be a chemical imbalance. This could just be a right now moment thing. Just don't do it right now. Just go talk to a doctor. Just go talk to a friend. You can always, it sounds dark and it sounds crazy, but like you can always come back to this. But you can't unmake this decision, right? So I think take a pause is one of the best things we can do to help our friends and our buddies and our brothers in arms, like, and sisters in arms in that situation.
Here's one for you, right? What's the person, this is my opinion, right? Hopefully I'm wrong, right? I think if a person decides to do it, there's nothing you do, right? Because most people are going to say, like, I'm not going to say, hey, Daniella, I'm going to do this tomorrow, right? And you might give signs, you might say, hey, goodbye, you might give clothes away, but I don't think no one really says, like, hey, I don't think really announce I'm going to do it, right? I think in my mind, I know it's dark, I think when somebody decides to do it, they're going to do it, right? Like, that happened like 10 years ago, right? this guy in Kansas City is 6 years old. He actually like did the whole plan on Facebook and they took it off, right? He's a sports writer in Kansas City, do like paper. He like, hey, I'm 60, have no kids, my wife left me, like I don't want to be a burden to society. Like he laid out how he's gonna do the stuff, right? I just think if someone decides to do it, there's nothing you can do to stop it, right? I know it's kind of dark and sad, but yeah.
Yeah, I agree. And that's why, I mean, just in general, you can't influence other adults from doing the things that they want to do, right? This is why when people ask me, like, how do we get people out of a cult? I'm like, nobody can tell you that, right? No. Like, if somebody knew how to stop people from taking their lives, they would be extraordinarily wealthy and probably super famous.
And also, like, people always say, hey, like, on the other time, hey, call me, you need help. Like most people, like, I'm not going to call you, like, I'm not going to burden you, like, you know, like, you have your own problems, right? It's like,
and that also puts the burden on that person to have to reach out kind of like in their darkest moments, you know? But I mean, I think the best thing we can do is we can be there for those people in that dark moment, you know?
And the best thing to do is like if someone asks you, hey, can I have a coffee with you? Have a coffee with that person, right? Or like, hey, do you want to have a beer? Have a beer. Like you never know, like something small, right? Like that's like saying hello to someone. You just never know what you do can influence that impact someone's day.
Yeah. There's a song by, I think her name is Rachel Plattner, and it says something, I don't know about heaven, but I'll walk through hell with you.
Yeah. Okay.
And that is a phrase that I used a lot with my brother. You know, it was just like, I don't know how to fix this for you.
Yeah.
But I'll sit with you in the darkness and I'll be there with you. And I think that's one of the best things that we can do.
And that makes this up, but I think I remember somewhere like, you know, like if you're like you're like your life kind of fucked up, you're not depressed, you're kind of well off. Like here's one for you: what demographic has the most suicides?
I don't know. I know the least is Black women, though.
The most is trust fund babies. Supposedly, the most demographic, most suicides is trust fund babies. Because they have nothing to live for. Everything's given to them.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's true or not.
I mean, that's the opposite of the least being Black women, right? Like the most oppressed group in this country having the least rate of suicide. And I think a lot of that has to do with just like coming through hard things or kind of being used to life is hard. Life is hard. Yeah. You get through it one moment at a time, and we can't really predict.
But
how
I definitely heard the
go.
chemical imbalance. I definitely heard that before, right?
Yeah.
That's one thing. Like, there's so many ways to die, right? Just live your life, right? Like, just live your life the best you can. Be good to people, like.
And you know, people don't think about this enough, but like one of the phrases my mom has said to herself and to me a lot since we lost my brother was like, 100% of the people you love are gonna die.
Yeah.
You know, like none of us know when that moment is gonna come. One of the my husband and I saw this plaque in a wine bar once, and we adopted it, and it said, live today like he deploys tomorrow.
Oh, that's nice.
And because he was deploying all the time, so he was deploying with the most dangerous flying stuff you could do in the world, the Special Operations 160th, and I was an expert on how pilots die, right? And so it was just like, you can't sit around and just think about what if. You just can't. You'll go crazy.
You gotta live your life, right? Like
I made very good logistics plans. Like I literally had a 20-minute process. I was like, if the car pulls up, and I would picture it, and I would sit there and I would plan it, and I was like, I have 20 minutes before I can fall apart because I have a child, right? And in those 20 minutes, I'm going to send 4 text messages and make 1 phone call, and then everyone will come and I can hand things off and I can fall apart. And then the rest was just like, we enjoy each other. When we are there, we do the stuff. We're not constantly saving for someday somehow. We take the vacations. We do the stuff.
Like people are like, hey, I'll travel when I retire. Okay, you retire 65. You're like 35 now. You retire 65. You don't know how your house is going to be. You don't know what's going on. Like,
and you don't even know if you're going to be alive then. Exactly.
Like, now,
you know? And I think that's part of it. Is just like, life is hard, and life is completely unpredictable. Yeah. So like, enjoy yourself to the level that your privilege allows. Yeah. Take care of other people, and that's all we know. That's all we can do.
It could be like you live in Dallas, go to Austin for a vacation over the weekend, right? Drive down there, go to fucking Salt Lake, go to 6th Street, right? Like, live your life, right? Because it's not fucking promised, right?
And I have to say, I lived in Texas for 6 years, and I still have not been to Austin.
What? Are you serious? There's no fucking way.
I have not been to Austin. I like once visited one of the cult commune homes in the outskirts of Austin, but I have not like walked around Austin. Every time I hear Austin is so awesome. I just need to do it.
Have you been to San
someday.
Antonio?
I have been to San Antonio multiple times, but I've not been to Austin. So it's on the list.
Have you been to El Paso?
Yes.
El Paso is such an underrated city.
And the first time I drove through Waco, Texas, as a 14-year-old, I could not understand why it was a functioning city, because the only thing I'd ever heard about Waco, Texas was the Branch Davidians shootout.
We used to call it Waco.
I just expected it to
Waco,
be like a smoked out apocalypse scene.
Waco, Texas, yeah. What's a place you haven't been to yet you want to travel to?
Oh, my two biggest ones right now. Okay, well, my biggest one is Japan. And I have been there. I lived there till I was 3.5, but I don't remember it at all. And I really think I'm going to learn about like reverse culture shock when I go there. And I would say my biggest place is Slovakia, because that's where my family's from.
Okay.
And like, I'm part Italian, and I was just in Rome a week ago, and the amount of people that look like me and like the way that I feel like I fit there in certain ways was very, very interesting, versus I was in Spain. And I love Madrid, but that was not the experience. So both for me and my husband, it's like his people are Dutch. I want to go there, and I want to go to Slovakia.
Amsterdam's such a cool city.
Because I think those are like missing pieces for me.
So my thing, I don't know why. I really don't like the winter. I won't go to Norway for some reason. I have no idea why. I won't go to Norway.
I also very much want to go, and I just took a connecting flight through Iceland, and it was really cool. And flying home 8 o'clock at night to the morning, it was bright the whole way. And I had never experienced that before, so that was very interesting.
So one thing about Dark with Japan, I heard like in Japan, there's always like this, like mainly like all these teenage females like fucking homeless, like on the streets, like getting with guys and shit. Like, I don't know if that's true or not, you know.
I don't know.
Yeah, every place is a dark place, though.
Yeah.
I know we gotta real fast, but one more question. What's the skill you don't know but you want to learn?
That I don't know but I want to learn. I think like right now my biggest thing is music. Like I'm trying to learn guitar. I have written a musical, but I don't actually have the skills to just like make up music. So sometimes it comes to me, I'm taking a lot of inspiration from the Cult, but like I would love to learn how to like actually compose melodies for songs.
So tell us some more what your event on Thursday.
Yeah, we're in downtown, not downtown Seattle, we're in Fremont. It is a Thai restaurant that we are going to, and I have invited 90 of my closest followers from the Seattle area. I actually had to stop advertising it about 10 days ago. And so now these people are like seeing my social media about being here, and they're like, "Are you having an event?" I'm like, "Yes, I'm sorry, it's sold out." So I'm going to have people come in, we'll sign books, I will read a little bit, and then I think I will sing them my new song, Christmas in Afghanistan, that I wrote for my musical. Ta-da!
How long were you in the military? Like 6 years, 8 years?
6.5 years.
So obviously you're proud of your service, right? But what's the lesson you learned from your military service that still sticks with you today?
Lesson that I learned from my military experience. One that really stands out to me is something so first of all, just learning that studying bad guys is important to everything else. Like I still don't understand why people don't want to hear about the bad stuff in their company, because that's the first thing you should want to do if you want to make it better. So like basic intelligence skills, I use it every day in my life. But something my mentor told me after I left the military, but it still applied to help me understand my whole experience, was where you sit is where you stand. And that like everyone's combination of how they grew up is their worldview. And I think one of the cool things about the military is we get exposed to people that we never would have met otherwise. And oh, this one's good too, that this goes along with this, that my first NCOIC sergeant in charge of my section had said, he said, I learned something from everybody that I have ever worked with. And whether that is like, I've learned what I don't want to be like, or I've learned things that I do want to be like, I have very much like intentionally implemented that, especially with the challenging people. I'd be like, what can I learn from them?
So that's one thing I think the military is good for. I was basic training, right? And so there's a black guy from the Bronx, right? A white guy from Kentucky, right? The black guy's like, I've never seen a white dude before. I hate white people. The dude from Kentucky, I've never seen black people. I hate black people. So you know what the George song did? Made them
Put them together.
And 8 weeks later, the fucking best of friends, like family, like we're not eating family. We're eating dinner with them. Like, no, you're eating dinner with my friend's family, right? Yeah.
And this what I thought was so funny when people were like, "Oh my gosh, MAGA's gonna like rush the military," and I was like, "I'll bet on the military." Like,
Yeah.
I don't think individuals are gonna break the military. I think the military is gonna break individuals. And I always say, like, it's pretty hard to be racist or sexist when you're in a foxhole with a black man and a woman.
It's so hard,
you know,
right?
we get through that pretty quickly.
Yeah, especially when like the person you hate goes gets your meal, or like, hey, get your MRE, or like, hey, you know, let me cover your thing for you, right? Yeah, it's so hard to be. Yeah.
I mean, there's not a lot of people sitting across from each other that are completely opposite politics like you and I are, and yet because we have this shared military experience, like we are good friends, and here we are. You know, there's something pretty cool about not getting to pick your team and just being forced to work with people. I think it teaches you a lot of people skills, and also just like respect for other people who are completely different from you.
That's the thing people don't, in military don't get a credit for, like the people skills. Another thing the military don't get a credit for, like, I don't care who you're like, you be E4. Cause I know if I see someone's resume and say, I spent 4 years military E4, I know at least one time they got in front of at least 100 people to give a class, right?
Yep.
I know they got in front of people who gave a class or something, right? They might have sucked at it. They presented something, right?
Yeah. You've had like a wide variety of experiences, you know, which is.
So I promise the last question. I could talk to you forever, Daniella. So confidence. Is confidence something you have always had, or you learned confidence through the years?
I would say both. I would say it is something I've always had. I think it's one of my like autistic traits, is just like believing in myself, even if I have no reason to. But also it is very much a learned thing. And, you know, I remember like when I was getting out of the military and all of the senior officers were kind of trying to scare me about how I would succeed in the outside world. And I kept saying to them, like, you know, you would really be scaring me if I hadn't been dropped off in this country at 15 with $0 and had to make my way. You know, so I don't know if it's exactly confidence, but like I've always been willing to bet on myself and bet that I could figure it out in a situation. And
why do you think most people don't do that?
You promised it was the last question.
I lied.
I don't think maybe most people have actually had that intensive experiences that young.
Yeah.
Is one of the answers, you know? Just that I've had to be confident in myself and my performance ability since I was 1 year old. Yeah. And so it's a skill I learned very, very young.
So besides the event Thursday, anything else going on this few months you want people to know about?
I'm going to be doing an event in Baltimore on August 3rd and an event in Asheville, North Carolina on August 26th. And also I have written a musical called Cult Baby, the Musical, veterans included. And this is my next thing that I'm trying to figure out how to fund and produce.
Cities. How do you pick Baltimore and Asheville? Like, how do you pick these cities? Is there a big following with these places?
Both of these were just events that I were invited to. And so then because I'm traveling there, I will just either invite people to that event or have another event. Sometimes it's because enough people ask me to go there that I will go there. Oh, and I'm also having an event in Nashville on June 21st. And that is because I'm going to Nashville to co-write a song called Cults Always Promise Space Travel with one of my favorite artists that I just reached out to and asked if they would co-write a song with me.
Nice, nice. So another lie. Do you ever look yourself in the mirror like Daniella, like you're the shit, like Daniella, like you're the boss bitch, like Daniella Young, like looking in the mirror like Daniella Young, like I've covered so much, like man, I'm so proud of myself, like like
I have recently started to do that.
Yeah.
Yes, I think that has been an important phase of my healing of being like, hey, you did this. This is really cool.
So I'm prepping this interview. What's her name? Zendaya, right? She did an interview one time, right? And the lady asked her like one time, "Do you ever look yourself in the mirror and tell yourself these other bitches ain't fucking close to me?" Do you tell yourself like this other bitch ain't close to you?
I do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it's good that I think more people need to do that.
Yeah. And if you're going to deal with the loneliness of being at the top, you might as well also like have the badass moments and tell yourself
it can
that
be
you're
so
a
fucking
boss.
lonely sometimes.
So, yeah. Yes, I do.
Nice. I'm glad you do that. So before we go, anything you want to say, talk about, plug, whatever.
I mean, definitely want people to buy my books. I've written 2 books, Uncultured, which is my memoir of growing up in the Children of God cult and then going into the cult of the U.S. Army. My second book is my Bad Guys Tactics book, The Culting of America. This is how people control you. And you can listen to either of those on Spotify Premium or anywhere you get your audiobooks, including my social media, or get signed copies from me on my social media. I've also done what I think is the only thing of its kind, a deconstruction workbook called Unculture Yourself. And you can get that on Amazon or from my social media. And what I want to leave people with is just like, there are no rules. I built $1 million a year brand knitting and talking about cults. So if you think you want to do something, just go do it.
Danielle, thanks for your time as always. Thanks for being my friend.
Thanks so much, Jason. You're the best.
So listeners, thank you